Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, folks? Hope you had a great weekend. I bet you probably did. The weather was gorgeous. And the only thing better than the weather that we had was the performance of the Winnipeg Jets on Saturday afternoon in Colorado. Holy crap. 7-0 beatdown of the Avalanche to complete the season sweep and certainly reinstill any confidence that may have been lost in the team or in the fan base as we get closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs, which begin next week. And in all likelihood, after that win on Saturday, will likely begin in Winnipeg as the Jets need one more point to assure themselves of home ice against the Avalanche in the first round. We have lots to get to. And by the way, if you haven't already, I know you maybe didn't want to watch Jets This Week with Connor Rabchak a couple weeks ago when the team went through a real kind of downward part of the schedule. You're definitely going to want to watch this week's edition. Already tons of people have checked it out. It's live on the YouTube channel and on the podcast feed. So if you have not already done so, make sure to check out maybe the most upbeat Jets This Week of the entire season, considering what Winnipeg did last week. Starting it off in Minnesota with a 4-game gauntlet through the Central Division we talked about. This would be the final dress rehearsal, if you will, for the Stanley Cup playoffs. A win in Minnesota. A stolen win in Nashville where the team didn't play particularly well, but Connor Hellebuck showed why he is the best goaltender in the NHL and will win the Vezina Trophy. And then the team picked it up after that, and I'm not sure we could look at any point in this season with two more impressive outings back-to-back than a 3-0 win in Dallas, followed up by the 7-0 thrashing of the Avalanche in Denver on Saturday. The vibes are high in Winnipeg. We talked on the show on Friday. It was time to, be positive about this team. They've got 50 wins on the year right now. And as I said, there's a very good chance that early next week, probably a week today, we'll be doing a game day edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk, getting ready for game number 1 between Winnipeg and Colorado. As I mentioned, it does sound, nothing official yet, but it does sound like the Jets series is going to begin on Monday. And as long as they finish the job, that'll be a home game. And the Whites will be coming out. We'll have a weekend to get ready for it and then dropping the puck on game number 1 between Winnipeg and Colorado, likely next Monday at Canada Life Center. If the Jets can hold on and officially clinch first place, they'll have the opportunity to do that tomorrow. We'll talk more about this game and the weekend overall, but these are two teams that are going in very different directions right now. After the Jets pounded Colorado at home, the Avs went to Vegas yesterday, looked pretty good after 2 periods, up 3-0, blew that 3-0 lead, lost in overtime right now, and we'll hear a little bit from Jared Bednar post-Saturday's game, as well as Devon Taves, who was sounded like he and his team was in a pretty dark place after what happened on Saturday. It didn't help the fact they got booed off the ice by their home fans in a game that was billed as the biggest game of the regular season in Colorado. The Jets were up for the challenge. Colorado wasn't. But again, that won't mean anything a week from now. The slates will be cleared, and the first team to win 4 of 7 games will move on to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to be all over this today. We'll hear from the Jets and Avalanche coming out of Saturday's big matchup. And we will also break it down with Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press coming up. Of course, the Masters took place on the weekend. We'll do a Masters recap as well with Adam Scully later on in the program of Golf Talk Canada. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, welcome to everyone that is with us in chat. People are fired up, as they should be. And we've already got 400 people as soon as we turn this thing on today. I think it's going to be a banger show today, but great to see everyone. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and give a thumbs up to the episode. Of course, shout out to all the podcast listeners making Winnipeg Sports Talk part of their daily routine as well. And a huge thanks to the sponsors that make this program happen each and every day. The great people at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Consolidated Supply, Wallace & Wallace, the Winnipeg Jets, Little Brown Jug, F Apparel, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Canadian Club, Modern Man Barbershop, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, and of course we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Remis, get in here. What a weekend. I cannot get over how beautiful it was, and I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people like me had some serious pep in their step after the performance of the visitors at Ball Arena Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it was crazy. If you were flipping back and forth between the Jets and the Masters, you had to be careful. I mean, you flip the channel, you come back, it's, what, the Jets scored 2 goals? It was unbelievable. And this was a game that was, big. I don't know if it was biggest game of the year territory, but in terms of home ice in the first round, determining a lot. And for the Jets to lay the smackdown like they did on an Avalanche team that has Stanley Cup aspirations, going through, mentioned the Central Division gauntlet, shutting out Dallas, shutting out Colorado, absolutely incredible. And yeah, I mean, maybe a week ago, it's amazing how the feelings around the team have kind of flip-flopped back and forth. I always say you're only as good as your last game when it comes to maybe our conversations that we're having here. But I mean, it just shows you that Jets are capable of beating any team in this league handily. Think of the Boston game, Ranger game, this game against the Avalanche. That was a statement game. Talking about it on Hockey Night in Canada. I mean, hey, did you see the Jets beat Colorado 7-0? Like, whoa, what's going on there? And so it was really, really impressive. And I mean, love to see it, and especially heading into the playoffs, I couldn't feel any better about the team right now.
Well, listen, there's no doubt about it. And I know we sort of talked about it on Friday. There was a few naysayers that said, well, Dallas, what did they really have to play for? They weren't very good on Thursday night. Colorado, all of the talk, if you looked at some of the Denver channels and writers, this was a game that the Avalanche themselves had said this was the biggest game of the season. They needed to set the tone for a series, and they wanted to play at home. They're one of the best teams at home in the National Hockey League. They had it on their sticks. Win that game, and in all likelihood, you're playing at home in game 1 and 2, and if the series goes the distance, you got game 7 in your home rink. And it was all Winnipeg. A great start for the Jets. They held the puck. They, had the shot share early on in the game, and it was just not even 6 minutes in. Sean Monahan on a beautiful pass from Nikolai Ehlers, also assisted by Neil Pionk, got the team on it. And then another great sign of things going forward for the Jets, Reem, is that the power play made the Avalanche pay when they went to the box. Back-to-back power play goals by Gabriel Velarde and Josh Morrissey made it 3-0. And by the way, playoff Adam Lowry has entered the chat. Lowry with a huge game, 2 goals, snapping a long drought. Sounds familiar? Reminds me of last year when he probably was the Jets' best forward in the playoffs, and really rounding into his game. 4-0 after the first period. You thought, okay, there'll be a big pushback from Colorado. Not enough. The Jets weathered the first 10 minutes, still were right there with them. I think the Avs only had about 10 shots at them, 10 or 11 shots at the midway point in the game. And then the Jets completely ran away with it. Tyler Toffoli from Kyle Connor. Monahan with his second goal of the game from Morrissey and Ehlers. And Adam Lowry sheepishly putting it into the net to make it a converted touchdown. And the third period was all about shutting the door, getting another shutout for Connor Hellebuck, the NHL's best netminder, and 7-0 the team. If there were people that were on the fence, I don't think they're on the fence any longer. This is a hell of a hockey team playing some of their best hockey at the most important time of the year. And it is time to get those whites out of the closet and get ready for next week.
Yeah, I know tickets went on sale, Huss. They were getting scooped up at some very serious prices, though. I'm getting fired up. I'm watching old highlights, seeing that Winnipeg crowd, incredible. You mentioned Adam Lowry. Last year in the playoffs, Adam Lowry, point per game player, 4 goals, 1 assist, big, goes to the net. Saw him, and it's great to see Tyler Toffoli get on the board. I mean, that line, Dynamite, Sean Monahan fit in so well with Ehlers and Toffoli, more than doubling Colorado in shot attempts at 5-on-5. Neil Pionk mixing it up as well. Remember playoff Pionk? We saw him last year. Yeah.
I mean, that hit on McKinnon in the first period was, a completely clean hit. Pionk said he thought maybe he lost his balance a little bit. But, certainly not shying away from the top player on the Colorado Avalanche, putting him on his keister, and then just sort of with a wry smile, allowing the Avalanche to try to go at him, more than happy to draw a penalty. And then, as we mentioned, the power play, making them pay with it. A big confidence boost game for Neil Pionk, who, as we've talked, as of late, had really struggled. But he and the team playing the best defensively that we've seen since the first half of the season in these last 2 games, Remis. And we wanted a statement game. We wanted another statement game. The Jets did it in all caps on Saturday.
Yeah, it was incredible. To do it against an opponent that you're going to likely be facing in round 1, I didn't see that happening. And, Colorado, I don't know if it sent them into a tailspin or what, but I think a lot of confusion there after the game with, how could you play like that? It's such an important game. They had days off leading up to it, and they got absolutely manhandled. And then yesterday, they had the 3-0 lead on Vegas, and, you blow it and you lose. And after the game, Jared Bednar, the head coach, has asked about their goaltending, and he calls out and says, you got to make a save at some point. For the Jets to be playing the way they are, going up against an opponent who was unsure about their game and maybe his questions in goaltending. They have 1 game remaining on Thursday against Edmonton, and the Jets have 2 more. You got to feel good, 3-0 against the Avalanche this season. Sweep Minnesota for the year. You sweep Colorado, avoid the sweep against Dallas. Jets, deserve to, or the Jets, hype meter is certainly rising, and you're feeling really good about their game. Couldn't ask for anything better in terms of possible outcomes. I don't know anyone who had 7-0, but they have to be in their heads a little. 3-0 against the Avs this season. Well done for the Jets, and they return home, have practice, and you can wrap up that home ice advantage with a point, against Seattle or Vancouver Thursday, or if Colorado loses to Edmonton on Thursday. But they want to get it done. Wrap it up tomorrow against Seattle. We'll have the home schedule. Wait for it to come out. And a very, very exciting times right now around the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, when we were together with the WST group at the must-win game against Calgary with the future of the WST pack on the line, not only did they get the win, but it was clinch time. And, they clinched a playoff spot, officially stamping their ticket to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Tomorrow night, it can be clinch time for home ice in the first round against the Colorado Avalanche. Of course, Seattle tomorrow. And if they're able to do that, I do wonder what that might mean for the lineup on Thursday. Although if the series does start Monday as expected, with Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off before that, you do wonder. I think if there's anyone that's dealing with any sort of nagging injury that's been playing through it, they'll get the night off. But we'll kind of pay attention to what Rick Bowness has to say over the course of the next 72 hours, I guess, heading into that. And, of course, a big part of those decisions will be what happens tomorrow. But certainly the Jets want to keep on doing what they've been doing and carry that into the playoffs. Reem, if a team sweeps a divisional opponent in the season series and finishes it up with a 7-0 win on the road, should they not maybe start with a 1-0 lead in a best of 7, just on principle?
Yes, I think the Jets are definitely. Home game for the Avalanche where you're playing for home ice, shocking. So yeah, I think we should petition the NHL. Be like, hey, the Jets should be starting with a 1-0 advantage. But actually, in terms of petitioning the NHL, one of the storylines from the weekend is keeping our eye on the William Jennings Trophy for the Winnipeg Jets. Had the shutout against Dallas to keep pace with Florida. Shutout on Saturday. They are 4 goals ahead of Florida, but right now, Laurent Brossoit is not going to get 25 games minimum. I do wonder if the Jets petition the NHL to be like, hey, come on. What's this 25 number? Who's coming up with that? Why is that relevant? This guy had 3 shutouts this year. They've best goalie tandem in the league. Get his name on the trophy. I don't know if they even care or if this is something just we like to talk about, but Hellbuck certainly cementing his Vezina trophy. Going to get a nomination. Sure, I think he's leading candidate to win, but exceptional season as well. We'll see what happens to him in the future. 37th career shutout for Hellbuck, so big performance for goaltending. That's going to be huge in the playoffs as well, the battle of the goaltending, but I didn't want to, we did have our daily Jennings.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. I mean, Florida has only given up 4 goals in their last 5 games. They've had 3 shutouts, and they gave up 2 goals, or I guess 3 goals to the Bruins, so 5 goals in their last 5 games. So it's actually not done yet. Florida only has one more game remaining, and they've given up 198 goals. The Jets, with those back-to-back shutouts, have given up 194 with 2 more games. So the Jets certainly have the advantage, but it is not done yet. And I'll say this, though. They keep on playing defensively the way they did over the course of these last couple of games. That should not be an issue. Jets right now, though, 50 wins on the season in 80 games, 50, 24, and 6, 106 points, the second best record in Jets 2.0 history, and almost identical records at home and away. 25 wins at home, 11 regulation losses, and 3 in OT or a shootout. Away, 25 wins, 13 regulation losses, and 3 overtime or shootout losses. 6-game winning streak right now for the Winnipeg Jets. They are the hottest team in the National Hockey League, and it's all coming together at the time when it matters the most, heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Just before we hear from Rick Bowness, speaking of playoffs, shout out to the Moose. The Moose booked their ticket to the Calder Cup playoffs on the weekend. Had a great weekend at Canada Life Center, rounding out the home portion of the schedule. Yesterday, Colby Barlow made his pro debut, playing in his first game for the Manitoba Moose. And what an incredible turnaround, Reem. I mean, you think, what was it, 11 straight losses to begin 2024? They were so far out of it. Often, especially, at the minor league level, that can completely blow up a season. The job that Mark Morrison and all the players did in battling back was really, really admirable. And this team deserves a lot of credit and a lot of respect for the way they turned their season around. And as good as the vibes are with the Jets, the vibes are pretty darn good with the Manitoba Moose, who have played their best hockey over the course of the last month or so and are now poised to maybe make some noise in the Calder Cup playoffs as well.
Yeah, what a Saturday it was for the organization. Has the Jets putting up 7 and the Moose putting up 7. Christian Reichel with the hat trick. And as you mentioned, January 24, lost 11 straight, last in the NHL. In 32 games, 20 wins. So 20, 10, and 2 into the playoffs. Very well done by the Moose. Certainly helped adding back Dominic Toninato, Axel Jonsson-Fjallby in there, Ville Heinola going back to health. So well done for the Moose. And yeah, they've figured out some goaltending. Thomas Milic came in and really impressed in his rookie season. So I'm curious to see what both teams do in the playoffs. But nice to have playoff games for the AHL and NHL here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, playoff tickets for the first couple games, I think, were gone almost immediately. There was a season ticket holder pre-sale, and then they basically went very quickly, whatever was remaining earlier today. So however you can, try and get seats for the game. Of course, the Whiteout Street Party is happening as well as the party in the Plaza. Any way you can put the Whites on and be a part of the playoff fever here in Winnipeg, I would suggest you do it. One other note, Reem. Rutger McGroarty's season ended, and we talked about that on Friday with Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press, who had a great piece in the Saturday Freep on Rutger. Make sure to check that out if you haven't already. I was listening to 31 Thoughts today. They had speculated that this was an interesting decision in that if Rutger thinks that he'll be in the NHL next year, he probably leaves. If he thinks that he's probably, like, if the development curve would call for him to be in the American League, probably goes back to Michigan. But we are seeing, I believe it was Colby Cohen who just reported the decision of turning pro or returning for another year at Michigan is expected in the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, Colby Cohen, he does a morning cup of coffee on Daily Faceoff, and he's part of the ESPN college hockey broadcast. And, you've seen some of Rutger McGroarty's teammates sign, most notably Frank Nazar signing with Colorado and then Chicago, and scoring on his first shot over the weekend. And I think there were a couple other teammates signing as well. So, I mean, for your guy in college and, you see some of your buddies going to the NHL, maybe you have your eye on that, but I can also see from his perspective, a guy like Nazar, who's on Chicago, not a very good team. There's NHL spots open. If you are having fun in college and want to keep it going, maybe you would. But if the NHL calls you, that would be an incentive. Maybe you don't want to go from college to the AHL, but maybe that's the path you have to take. And you look at the Jets roster, they've got every spot locked up for next year. The only UFAs right now are Toffoli and Monahan. So,
listen, that's a long, long ways away. Mm-hmm. I don't think that anyone that rules out Rutger McGroarty being in the NHL next year is crazy. I see some people saying it's AHL for sure. No way. No way. It might be, and it might be partly, but I would say that he will play NHL games next year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And listen, for all the players that are signed next year, I think there's also the possibility that there is some player movement over the course of the offseason, potentially opening up a spot for Rutger McGroarty. So, again, we'll find out first things first, and maybe the decision that we get potentially in the next 24 hours gives us a pretty good idea about what is to come and how the Jets and McGroarty figure his chances are of playing in the NHL. I would love to see him sign. I think just everything about him being added to the organization, even if he does spend some time with the Moose, I think would be great. And listen, he's done so much already at the NCAA level. I think it's time to play for the big boys for Rutger, but we will find out exactly how that shakes out over the course of the next little bit. Listen, we're going to hear from Rick Bowness and Jared Bednar, two coaches in very different moods after Saturday's game, and we'll do that in just a couple of minutes. Before we do that, I got to thank our friends at Consolidated Supply. My God, it was gorgeous on the weekend. The snow is gone. People are ready to get those lawns and properties looking great. Now's a great time to talk to the experts over at Consolidated Supply, the irrigation experts in town. Also do great things with artificial turf. Golf carts for the summer, new and used, is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, and other amazing options for your property, including hot tubs and great outdoor kitchens and more. They're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Consolidated Supply is ready for spring. Pop down and see them, 1395 Niagara Road East, or check them out online at CTE, .ca. Shout out to our friends at Modern Man Barbershop. Great spot. You want to get a good fresh cut just in time for the playoffs? Hey, they also do color service as well. Maybe you go straight white for the whiteout. They can help you with that. Beard shaping, shaves, and more. 8 locations in the city, 1 conveniently located near you. Best way to make an appointment and book your look is do it online at modernmanbarber.com. And speaking of spring, Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are ready to go. Big spring sale on right now at one of two Manitoba Battery locations. Of course, the original on Logan and the new one on Dovercourt that they just opened up. Farmers, construction, landscaping companies getting ready for the hard work ahead. Make sure you got your batteries ready to go at the best prices in town. Half tons. They've got those batteries for $75 to $85 right now. The 31 threaded post batteries for $80, and golf cart batteries, 6 volts for $129.50. The lowest, best prices in town, bar none. Shop local, get the best deals, and get ready for spring with the Manitoba Battery Spring Sale online at manitobabattery.com. And I can't tell you, the toast after Saturday's game was particularly sweet with the turnaround that the Jets have authored, running the table over that 4-game road trip. And the Canadian club tasted that much sweeter on Saturday night after the Jets had done what they had done. Hopefully we'll be toasting many playoff victories in the whiteout and on the road. There's, of course, a CC for every occasion, but the CC was a victory shot and cocktail on the weekend. Of course, Canadian Club, proud sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk, your Winnipeg Blue Bombers as well. Pick up all the great Canadian Club family and line of products at your local Manitoba liquor marts. All right, let's get to the room after the beatdown of the Avalanche on Saturday, 7-0. Connor Hellebuck's 37th career shutout with 30 saves. Rick Bowness met the media afterwards and talked about the big win over the Colorado Avalanche.
It was certainly one of our best of the year. It was. We came out, we wanted to play aggressive against them, and we did.
What'd you do well?
We managed the puck going through the neutral zone. We were able to put pressure on them. We won some faceoffs. The power play was outstanding, and that got us going too. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't... that's not their best game. We know we're going to see a lot better than that. I know their goalies had a tough night, so hope we're happy with what we did, knowing that it's not going to look like that when the playoffs start.
You talked a lot about defensive structure. What does it mean to go through Dallas and Denver without allowing a goal?
Yeah,
two high-octane teams.
Yeah, and you know, both goalies made the timely saves. We gave them some chances there at the end of the second and the third. And Bucky was great. LB was wonderful in Dallas. So we know if we play with the right structure and the right pressure that we're a very tough opponent. And when we do break down, which is going to happen, then our goalies are going to be there for us.
All right, so there's Bones. And listen, he did make an important point that I think everyone should be mindful of. The Avs are going to be a hell of a lot better in game one of the playoffs than they were on Saturday. It was an epic faceplant by that team in such a big game that had been hyped up in Denver as the biggest game of the season. And their fans let them know it. And as well as the Jets have played, what was it, a 4-2 win, a 6-2 win, and a 7-0 win? The Jets really did dominate Colorado this year. None of that really does matter, Remis, when they drop the puck on game one, and the Jets have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, we don't want to jump to conclusions after one game. I remember seeing the Jets in Vegas last year after one game, you know, Pierre-Luc Dubois with the beast mode performance, or the Jets in Vegas versus Vegas in the conference final. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions on Colorado, but hey, 3-0 in the regular season. You got to feel good that you know the blueprint to beat them. You got to feel good. I mean, they have questions in goaltending. So, I mean, they know they're realistic, but hey, I mean, got to feel it's good for the confidence going forward. We know Colorado's a good team, but hey, the Jets are pretty good too.
Well, they looked a part of it on the weekend as well. And as great as the start was, pretty much everybody got in. Although, funny enough, Mark Scheifele didn't score. Had no points in the game. Kyle Connor had a couple, I believe, 1 or 2 assists. But it was everybody getting in on it. A great game by the fourth line. And what Bones had said about getting Ehlers with Monahan and Toffoli, that line looked phenomenal. Ehlers had a big game. Monahan, one of the stars. But the power play looked great. And, for the power against a team like Colorado, that you know is going to get their fair share of power plays and probably will do their damage. Incredibly important to be able to make your opponents pay when they get into the box. And that's exactly what the Jets did. And that was a huge part of that monster 4-goal first period with 2 power plays. Bones talked about the resurgence of the power play and their performance on Saturday.
We saw earlier when Gabe was there, we had the 6 goals in a couple of games, and then we lost him again, and then he's back there, and I think he makes a big difference. Having Sean in the bumper position makes a huge difference. He's so smart. Mark runs it on the half wall, and it was good earlier, and it would look really good tonight.
I can't think of a time where it looked, well, listen, maybe it looked better. The fact that the goals went in obviously was the big difference. He didn't mention Josh Morrissey. I thought Morrissey was absolutely phenomenal, Reem. And I know we're going to be talking about MVPs for the season, and I think Connor Hellebuck is going to get the majority of those votes. If you take the goaltenders out, Josh Morrissey has quietly had another career season. I know the points aren't quite what they were last season, but for me, I think I might give Morrissey the nod as the most important player of this team, not playing goal position.
Yeah, I think him or Mark Scheifele would be my vote. We saw what they looked like without Mark, but as far as Josh Morrissey, Morrissey has 67 points in 80 games. Yeah, not quite the level of last season, but I mean, he's down on the ice, plays the most minutes, plays against top competition. So I'm a big Josh Morrissey guy. You see how he can skate, how he can move the puck. It's amazing. I was looking last week at, even strength, 5-on-5 goal differential, and the Josh Morrissey, Dylan DeMello pair among the best players in the league. I think they were both in the top 10. So, that's an incredible stat. And he also plays on the power play as well. So, it's a tough call. I think you could make a case, just like the Hart Trophy vote that's coming up at the end of the season for the Jets Hart Trophy. You can make a case Morrissey, I think Scheifele, and of course Connor Hellebuck. So it's a tough one.
Listen, Scheifele may not have scored on the game, but he had a real solid game, and I see a number of comments in chat on that. By the way, shout out to Low Bridge Hit. Sitting on a cruise ship in Miami, about to set sail to the Bahamas and getting my Winnipeg Sports Talk fix. Love to see it, Low Bridge. Have a great trip. Hopefully you can get back to the Peg in time for some playoff action. I guess the plan is to have a long playoff run and plenty of opportunities for you to get back here when when the trip is finished. Back to the Jets. We mentioned that second line. I mean, Monahan, Toffoli, Ehlers, a dominant performance. Here's what Bones had to say about line 2.
Again, they're a threat, and they got that big first goal for us, and that line has looked good when we put it together. And then, Tyler got sick and kind of threw a little wrench into the plans, but that's going to happen. Cole stepped in and did a wonderful job with them. So we have good depth, but from the day we put that line together, we like the looks of it.
All right, well, that's exactly what Bones was hoping to see once, he made the switch back. I mean, a lot of talk about what they're going to get from that top line. They got a lot from that second line. Nikolai Ehlers sort of setting the tone with that beautiful pass on the opening goal and dangerous throughout the night. As I mentioned right off the top, playoff Lowry was in full effect on Saturday afternoon. The captain, Adam Lowry, with a 2-goal game. Bones talked about the man with the C on his shirt and his contribution in the 7-0 win.
Very happy for him. He just works so hard. He's so consistent every night. He just lays it on the line. From a coaching perspective, you couldn't ask for any more from what Adam's given us both on and off the ice. He's been a great captain. He's been a great leader in the room, great leader on the ice. And when you play that hard as he does every night, every once in a while, you want that reward. He got it tonight.
Well, he certainly did. And I have a feeling Lowry is one of those players that sort of is a little streaky offensively, although you know what you're getting from him night in and night out. And his number one job is usually to shut down the likes of the Nathan McKinnons on the other team. But as we saw last year, Remis, going into the playoffs, when the team was faltering. He was the guy that at times put the team on his back, was one of, if not the best forward in the series against Vegas when things were going down. And I got to tell you, I think he might be a sneaky playoff pool pick because if history has indicates anything, is that Adam Lowry is going to step up big for his team come playoff time.
Yeah, Adam Lowry just went 17 straight without a goal, but I agree. He was certainly streaky. We saw that last year. I'll never forget him last year, I think, in Nashville, where they're fighting for a playoff spot. He put the team on their back. He did that last year with the tying goal in that game where they lost in overtime, Michael Amadio. But you mentioned Adam Lowry in Jets playoff history. I was doing some looking back. Adam Lowry assisted on the first ever Jets 2.0 playoff goal. Sorry, he scored the first ever one and assisted on the first ever one at home, scored by Lee Stebniak. I put that on our Instagram. Just, I'm getting so fired up for playoffs, Huss. I got to go watch like old, whiteout clips from 2.0 era just to get the blood pumping. You got the towel out.
I've got the towel. I was looking at it earlier. This is from last year. We'll see what they've got for us come, hopefully, Monday night at Canada Life Center. And I'll tell you what, the guy with the C on his chest is going to be front and center in that matchup with Nate McKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche, especially assuming the Jets do get home ice and Nate McKinnon is out to take the opening faceoff for the Colorado Avalanche. You can bet your bottom dollar Adam Lowry is going to be out there to take the one and go up against him. Let's hear from the captain. Adam Lowry, 2 goals. Very pleased with the way his team performed in a very important divisional matchup.
Yeah, I think our first period we did a really good job staying on top of them, forcing turnovers, the power play. 2 huge goals for us, I think, but limiting their chances. We know they've got some of the best players in the world, a lot of speed up there coming through the middle. So kind of eliminating those chances, I thought we did such a good job in the first. And you get a little loose when the game kind of gets out of hand. But, kind of duplicating, another good start. We like kind of how the majority of this road trip outside of Nashville went. So just looking to continue that when we go home.
All right, there's Adam Lowry. I'm not sure what that meant on the board, Reem. Screening at FBO. Avs are 2, so let's, and then it was something them. That was behind Adam Lowry's shoulder. If anyone knows what that means, let us know in the chat. Screening at FBO, Avs are 2, so let's something them. The Jets blanked them in a number of ways. You can that might be the why not question of the day for Not AutoCorp. What's the word and what did the Jets do to the Avalanche? Describe that win in the chat right now for the why not question of the day. Let's get back to a little more Adam Lowry. Talked about the back-to-back shutouts and the team getting back to the structure that provided them the foundation for their success early on in the season.
We're not going to have success in the playoffs if we don't play with that solid defensive structure. So, we have world-class goaltending, and we can rely on that some nights. But, to have success and to go on a run, we're going to need to play well in front of him. I think, the little things, Nicky turns it over and just 2 huge shot blocks, 7-0. But, playing for your goaltender, there's little things like that go a long way.
All right, a little bit more from the captain, Adam Lowry, post-game on Saturday. One more from Adam, and just talked about the nature of a statement game like that against a team they'll be meeting in the first round.
The Dallas one's more, it was a tight checking. We played really well, didn't give up a lot. It's, the game's so close the whole time. I think this one, the score kind of gets out of hand. Both teams kind of get loose. It's, I think it's nice to come in here, play really well, but come playoff time, we expect a better effort from them. We know they're a much better team than they showed tonight. So, you can't take too much out of this. It's nice to finish the road trip strong. It's nice to continue playing well and going into these last 2 games with a lot of confidence.
So there's the captain, Adam Lowry. That's it from the Jet Room coming out of Saturday. As you can imagine, Reem, it was a very, very different mood in the Avalanche dressing room after getting pumped on home ice and booed off the ice by their fans at Ball Arena.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's the former Stanley Cup champions. They got big aspirations for this season, and yeah, it's a big game. Home ice on the playoffs. Who wouldn't want home ice? Last change. I mean, we don't really talk enough about the altitude affecting the visiting teams. I think it is maybe a bigger factor than gets discussed. So, yeah, I mean, for them to lay an egg like that, they should have got booed off the ice. It was pretty incredible. So you do want to hear what the players have to say that because they've had some up and downs this season. Devon Taves called them out, earlier in the year as well. I mean, he was pretty critical after that game. So, you always want to go, hear from the winning team, but what about the losing team?
Interesting. We're finding this out. FBO apparently is airport screening. Stonewall Dave, FBO is fixed base operator, which is a company that is given permission by an airport to operate on its premises to provide aeronautical services for aircraft passengers and crew. So I think Colorado is heading to to Vegas afterwards. So maybe that was like, okay, guys, get your stuff and let's get going. So we beat Colorado.
Oh, that has nothing to do with
the
that.
airport screaming.
Yeah, that's
what that is. Screening at FBO. As our two. So let's beat them. Well, I don't know if they beat them through the FBO. They certainly beat them on the ice. But as we mentioned, this was a very, very different story in the Avalanche dressing room. Let's hear from Jared Bednar on Saturday's game.
I mean, you can't be forgetting why it ended up like that, especially when we got to play them at the most important time of the year. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we're going to have to remember it. We're going to have to learn from it, study it, and understand it because, we're going to have to be a lot better than that. That's 2 out of our last 3 games were like that.
And, you think about and we talked about this on last week, Reem. They had a number of pretty ugly games. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, losing, I believe it was to the Habs and to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then, last weekend getting pumped by the Edmonton Oilers. And then certainly had to be a low point with that 7-0 loss on home ice to the Winnipeg Jets. Bednar talked a little bit more about what happened and said it was not fatigued. They straight up got out-competed by Winnipeg.
But we just had 2 days off, really good practice. We're 1 full day. Some guys hit the ice. Some guys did recovery work the second day. Then you have a full practice and you're playing an afternoon game. That's not fatigue. You're not getting more rest than that in this league ever. So that you can't use it as an excuse. I felt like we got out-competed in the first. Some of the decisions that you make when you're competing and you're skating and you're working, you cover up mistakes. When you're not, and you're not competing, you make a bad mistake or a bad read someplace, it never gets covered up. It ends up in the back of your net. And there's just way too many easy goals. But when I look at it, first period, we're getting beat to our net off the boards. You're getting beat off the boards in the cycle. You're getting beat to the net off the rush. They're just outworking you. And then some of the decisions in the second period that led to some odd man rushes against, part of it's work ethic. It's getting back above pucks immediately. There's hesitation and rest in our game, more rest than hesitation, and you can't rest against a team like Winnipeg. I mean, as good as we think we are as a team, they're ahead of us.
Interesting comment by Jared Bednar. And I'm not sure the rest of the league maybe has clued into that. I can tell you, looking at the odds to win the cup, Colorado is a significantly lower odds than the Winnipeg Jets are. We're actually going to get to that in the Coolbet lines, but I should mention this to you right off the bat, gang. If you're buoyed by the team and want to put a little sprinkle on them, we were talking about this today in the lock shop, and Pat from Coolbet was on with us. And I was going through the numbers, and the Jets, had been as low as 13, 14 to 1, 15 to 1. They sort of backed up a little bit. It was 17 to 1 recently. Today at Coolbet right now, the Jets are 20 to 1. And Pat looked around at some of the competitors. The Jets are as low as 10 to 1 on other sites. So I will tell you that if you do want to throw down a little nickel or something on the Jets to win the whole thing, 20-1 is a number you're not going to find anywhere else, and I'm not sure how long it will be there. You can always use the promo code WST on your first deposit over at Coolbet. Check out the NHL futures. 9-1 to win the West and 20-1 to win the Cup. Maybe other people aren't paying attention to what Winnipeg has been doing as of late. We certainly have been, and hard not to be buoyed by their performances in the last couple of games on the road against Dallas and Colorado. We just heard from Jared Bednar, who had pretty strong words for his team's performance or lack thereof. Devon Taves, one of their top defensemen, spoke afterwards, and well, here's what he had to say about the embarrassing 7-0 loss.
Yeah, it's not good enough all around. Every aspect of the game today was soft, no compete, no support, no communication, just through and through, not a good game.
Knowing that this is a team that you are now destined to face in that first round, how important will it be to, change the mindset and make sure that this is not in your memory at all when you face them to have a different outcome?
Well, it should be in our memory. That's embarrassing in our building to lose 7-0 in a game that means a lot for both teams, and especially us. And we put on a poor performance for our fans, and now it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Probably going to have to start on the road. That's the way it looks now. So we had an opportunity to get home ice, and we didn't show up.
All right, so there's Devon Taves. And listen, this team came back yesterday, played the Vegas Golden Knights, was up 3-0 after the second period, I should say, gave up 3 in the third and ended up losing in OT, which means the Jets need 1 point to book their ticket to home ice in the first round of the playoffs. One other note that we didn't play. By the way, shout out to Guerrilla Sports in Denver for the audio from both Jared Bednar and Devon Taves. Guerrilla, like Guerilla. Lots of great content if you want to dive in a little bit more to the Avalanche side of things as we get ready for the playoffs is over there. We may have to invite one of those guys on, talk about the upcoming series. Couldn't have gone any better for Winnipeg as far as getting to Alexander Georgiev. And frankly, he got the hook after the first period, and Noonan did not fare much better in the second period against the Winnipeg Jets. And what a different story you have with the confidence Winnipeg has in their goaltending tandem coming off the back-to-back shutouts. Georgiev wasn't going to play yesterday. Bednar said, no, he's going back in the game yesterday, and obviously wasn't able to hold down the lead. So that's sort of the way the weekend went. We are going to dive into more Winnipeg Jets talk and Jets Avalanche with Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press coming up in just a minute. First off, let's crack one for our friends at Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
To our friends over at Little Brown Jug. Hey, with spring here, there is so much going on with the turn of the season as we get ready for summer. And our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists, are getting real busy as they have been booking fence orders and are expecting to be starting installations very, very soon. Today is the deadline, April 15th, where if you get your order in by today, they can guarantee installation by the end of May, so you can enjoy an entire summer on your side of a brand new fence. I'd imagine in the next couple days you'd be pretty close as well. But bottom line is, if you're thinking about a new fence, there's only one place to call. That's Wallace & Wallace. 452-2700 is the name. They can come out, give you a free estimate. You can also visit them online at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent, just off of Kenaston. Guys are also thinking about maybe changing up the wardrobe as we get ready for summer and wedding season. Guys, if you're looking into your closet and realize you need to up your menswear game, there's only one place to go, and that, of course, is F Apparel downtown at 190 Smith Street. The guys at F have the best deals on custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you are in a wedding party this summer or having a wedding, be sure to talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount for wedding parties. You've also got a great promo on right now as well if you need a new suit for a high school grad. Find out more online, that's EPHapparel.com. You can also make an appointment online to go in and get fitted up. Pop by and see him at 190 Smith Street as well, and again online at fapparel.com. And hey, a big cheers to the gang at Aikens Lake. Can't tell you that the Father's Day booking is now full. The guide team is set, and it's all systems go on another summer in paradise at Aikens Lake. If you, your company, or personally are looking for a world-class fly-in fishing experience where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot. And as great as the fishing is, the hospitality of the amazing Aikens team might actually outdo the world-class fishing, if that's possible. Find out more, aikenslake.com. Booking well into the second half of the summer right now. Don't wait till it's all full. Give them a buzz today or check it out online at aikenslake.com. All right, we will touch on the Masters later on. Adam Scully going to join us in the last half hour of the show. But coming off a weekend that included a 7-0 win for the Jets against the Colorado Avalanche, I pretty much know what we're going to be talking about with Jeff Hamilton, who joins us now from the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammer, I'm sure you had a good weekend, as certainly Jet fans had a good weekend, starting at about 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon with, we've talked a lot about the best wins of the season. Adam Lowry talked about the win in Dallas, 3-0, the way they really shut Dallas down. Everything went Winnipeg's way in a game with a lot on the line against a team they're going to be meeting in a week.
Hustler. Yeah, it was a great weekend. And people always say, hey, you don't show your Winnipeg Sports Talk merch. So it doesn't quite fit in, but I'm pretty much always wearing it. That's because I don't own a lot of clothes. But other than that, it was a great weekend, man. Obviously a great weekend for the Jets. What a victory against the Avalanche, followed up, as you mentioned, a strong win against the Dallas Stars, two teams that, at that point were ahead of them in the standings. And look at the Jets now, man. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Obviously, I was one of the critics, if you will, over the last few weeks, much, given what we had seen, the level of competition, obviously the losing streak. But, I mean, the Jets have flipped that switch, or at least it looks like it. I mean, a lot of what, this season will mean will depend on how they do in the playoffs, but you have to be looking at what they've done over the last, stretch here and the victories they've had, including that touchdown win against the Avalanche. And, you got to be feeling pretty good if you're a member of the Jets, and certainly if you're a fan of the Winnipeg Jets. So this is, and it's shaping up to be a pretty interesting, first round's always a good series, but to see these two teams go at it again, that's got to be an ultimate shot of confidence for the Winnipeg Jets as they prepare for their dance this spring.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And listen, I still think, based on the cup odds and the odds to win the West, the Jets probably open this series as an underdog, even if they have home ice against the Colorado Avalanche. But I think a lot of that is built on reputation. I mean, if you think about what the Winnipeg Jets have done against the Avalanche this year, going 3-0 and putting an exclamation mark on it on Saturday afternoon, I'm not sure there's a lot of guys in the Jet locker room that feel they're underdogs. And you mentioned the confidence boost. I mean, listen, they kind of bottomed out there on that 6-game losing streak, a couple of really ugly games on the road trip in New York. Since then, though, they're the hottest team in the NHL. They've won 6 in a row. And we had circled that last week on the schedule, saying, okay, you're going to be ready for the playoffs? Well, prove it. They did exactly that, running the table, albeit a bit of an ugly win against Nashville. But they owned it afterwards and said, we're going to need to be a lot better in these games against Dallas and Colorado, and that's exactly what they were.
To your point on that one, I thought the post-game conversation, particularly with Captain Adam Lowry, was exactly what you wanted to hear from the Winnipeg Jets captain. You wanted to hear that while it was certainly a solid victory, and there was plenty to be happy with, not just the outbursts offensively, not just the power play, but the defensive side of the game, clearly earning that shutout, but recognizing that, that was just a game, and if they're going to see this team a lot in the future here, and that you can't put too much stock into it. We've seen in the past, in some instances, over some occasions, including this season, that the Jets get a little bit fat when they secure big wins, and they, and rightfully so in a lot of ways. You want to enjoy that. You want to be feeling those good vibes, and the Jets certainly are after this road trip. But you also want to put things into perspective. You just lit a fire under Colorado's ass. You're going to expect them to bounce back, and for Adam Lowry to even acknowledge the fact that he felt like maybe his team settled in a little bit too much near the end of that game. Now, I think that's just natural when you're leading by that kind of score. But even just the acknowledgement is important. So, I think they're saying the right things. They're certainly doing the right things. I don't, it's going to, this is a club that has faced a lot of adversity, and I don't even know if I would be bothered by being an underdog. I think it bodes well for the Winnipeg Jets to be considered the underdog in this one. I think it maybe adds too much pressure to be the favorite against a team like the Colorado Avalanche. And the reason why many would consider the Winnipeg Jets the underdogs in this is because it wasn't that long ago, Huss, that we were talking about Colorado being the best team in the NHL over the stretch that they had. So, and not to mention, this is a team that's done a lot of damage in the playoffs. They have a lot of experience when it comes to the postseason. They have 2 players over 100 points. I mean, they have the firepower. A little bit of question mark in net, particularly of late, but this is a good Avalanche team, and I expect it to be a good series. So the Winnipeg Jets, whether or not they're consider themselves underdogs, whether the outside considers themselves underdogs, I think they can look at the blueprint and what they did this last game, and at the very least have the confidence to know that in a game that mattered, to both sides, in a game that you had mentioned earlier in your show, for the Colorado Avalanche, that knew what was at stake in this game, for the Jets to be able to be the team that shows up and show up the way that they did. I mean, I don't care if you're an underdog or not. That's a confidence booster right there, just knowing you can do it.
And home ice. I mean, we talk about it, and again, it's Game 7. It's the first couple games. I mean, overall, in most series, I'm not sure if it really matters that much. Not often will you see a series go 7 and the teams are just winning on home ice. But in this particular matchup between Winnipeg and Colorado, first of all, they are so top heavy with that top line. I mean, to have the opportunity to get the Lowry line out on the last change in 4 of the 7 games is significant, particularly in a winner-take-all Game 7. If it gets that far, is important. But when you look at the splits of the Avalanche, and take this for what it's worth, they're 39-1 at Ball Arena. 2 of those losses in regulation to the Winnipeg Jets. They're only 19-16-6 on the road. So, while the Jets have 25 wins at home, 25 wins away, the Avalanche have eaten up opponents at home, and they've been relatively average on the road, which is another thing that I think Winnipeg fans and certainly Winnipeg management has to be pleased about in the aftermath of that game on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, just to address your first point about the line change too. I mean, that game was played in Colorado in Ball Arena, as you mentioned. I mean, that the Jets have had success there. I've also seen the Jets. I've been in that arena several times. That's not an easy arena to play in. It is a very energetic, raucous crowd that shows up night in and night out for them, and that's a testament to their record there. I've seen the Jets. Was it last season where they went up 3-0 or whatever it was and lost swiftly, like 6-3? I mean, this is a team that you can't, those are lessons learned in that process. As a team, you can't take the pedal off the foot off the pedal, and you have to keep driving through, because you give this team an inch and they'll capitalize. And I think the Jets learned that in this last affair, and have learned that really, whether it be on the road or at home against the Colorado Avalanche, that this is a team that has enough firepower, that has enough experience, that they can claw their way back in games. And you need to be prudent in your execution, in your structure for 3 full periods. It's going to be a grueling series, Huss. This is not going to be, while 7-0 is certainly going to be a confidence booster for Winnipeg, this is going to be a tough series for both sides, it seems. But certainly, for I'd say the team with I really do think home ice advantage is a big piece to this puzzle. And I mean, you can look at the Jets' success, at Ball Arena this year. I mean, you got to throw all that stuff out the window. Obviously, it matters. It in the standings and where you finish, and it's seeming to be pretty crucial, those victories against Colorado this year. And potentially giving Winnipeg that home ice advantage. But like I said, this is a series that we all know have been coming now for a little bit. We all saw the anticipation in that game. I think the Colorado Avalanche got a bit of a wake-up call. I'm not suggesting that they went into that game easy. As I just said, they knew what was at stake. They knew what was, what that game meant to the standings. And so it's just going to ramp up even more here come the playoffs. But I like the Jets' depth. I like I like how they're playing right now. You got to appreciate the goaltending right now, of course, with Connor Hellebuck and Laurent Brossoit. You got to be feeling pretty good. But these are the things, we kind of talked about, I don't want to say last season. Well, yes, we did talk about these last season. There's certainly more confidence here in where they're heading into the playoffs and not backing into the playoffs. But whether the Jets have the greater depth, whether they have the edge in goaltending, 5-on-5, whatever it may be, they need to prove that when it matters the most. And I think that's probably the big hurdle here for the Winnipeg Jets, is that mental one, is to play against a team as good as Colorado is and has been for years and has that experience. You need to dig deeper. So, much like we said before, that we're going to find out who the real Jets are this stretch, and it's certainly been a great sign as they move towards the playoffs. We're going to find out even more come this first series against 2 very solid opponents, and maybe the beginning, Huss, of a very interesting rivalry brewing between 2 teams that, if you look at their rosters, doesn't seem like they'll be slowing down anytime soon.
No, it's a great point, and the fact that Colorado then went out yesterday and was up 3-0. And then blew that 3-0 lead and ended up losing in OT. This is a team that's had very highs. And listen, they do have a championship pedigree. They've been to the top of the mountain just 2 seasons ago. So you have to assume that they'll steady themselves and be ready to go for game 1. But while things are trending in exactly the direction you want from a Jets perspective, this is a skid that the Avalanche don't seem to have a lot of answers for right now, as we heard from Devon Toews and Jared Bednar earlier.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, it's to be preaching lessons, to listen to Jared Bednar after that game. I mean, did they, correct me if I'm wrong here, Huss, had they not played since Tuesday in that shellacking against Minnesota? I wonder how much of that was in effect for, not showing up essentially, because wow, that game, if you looked at the Colorado Avalanche that game, you'd think they were primed for the playoffs. And that just goes back to my, the point I've been making over and over and over again on this show. And it's the beauty of professional or any kind of sports, is if you want to change the narrative, you have the ability to change the narrative. People have short memories. People go with what is right now, and the Winnipeg Jets are riding it right now. And the Colorado Avalanche are now forced to answer questions about goaltending. I mean, wondering if they're going to start, return to their starter in the last game of the season. It's just, it's those questions that the Winnipeg Jets were kind of asking in the past. And now, obviously not with goaltending, but other areas of the roster. And whether that, I think that the Colorado Avalanche, unfortunate for Jets fans, is that I think they're more equipped to deal with some of those hurdles. You don't win a Stanley Cup, and you don't compete for a Stanley Cup as often as the Colorado Avalanche have been over the last X amount of years here without being able to navigate through some of those highs and lows. So I do. At this point, I think it's fair to give the edge to Winnipeg in that first round, particularly if they can secure that home ice advantage. But I would, back to our earlier point, I'd almost say that the Winnipeg Jets have to go into this series feeling like the underdogs. And I think it's, again, not feeling that the Colorado Avalanche are a significantly better team than them. I mean, how can you say that when you look at the Jets' record over them this year? And obviously that's 7-0 victory. But you have to respect your teammate here. And this is a team that, knows when to turn it on, knows when to figure it out, knows how to, wade through those highs and lows. And now it's the Winnipeg Jets' turn to understand that, yes, they're in a good position. Yes, they've had a good season, but they haven't done much. And this is their opportunity now to take that chip on their shoulder and to prove to a team like the Colorado Avalanche that they are for real. And then again, start changing that narrative that, the one that was brewing earlier about the Jets being frauds. Well, the Jets beat the Avalanche 7-0. But if they get bounced out of the first round here, people are going to go right back to that narrative that this team, is a fraud. Win that first round, and I think you shed that. You start to shed any kind of, doubt for this team. And I know it's just one series, but it's a series against a really, really strong Colorado team. So, that's the beauty of the situation the Winnipeg Jets are in. So they can consider themselves whatever they want to consider themselves as heading to that series. But it's about getting it done. And certainly when you look at that last game with the expectations on that game, with the pressure on that game for them to deliver the way they did and get contributions up and down the lineup and to do things on special teams that we haven't seen at a consistent level this season, those things will bode well into the confidence and formalizing that identity and that confidence heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, and listen, the whole fraud business, whatever. It's one person's opinion, and I know people kind of get all their backs up when they say that. That's the joke. This team has 50 wins. They have been battling for first place in the West, in the Central Division all year long. And if you look at any team over the course of 82, there'll be a couple periods where there will be lulls. The Jets had, a 3 or 4 game losing streak earlier this season, and then they had the 6-gamer. But the way that they have followed that up, I think tells you what you need to know about this team. And listen, for all the questions that we had about is this team playoff ready, what they will look like, the thing that stands out the most about these last couple games, and maybe Dallas, as Adam Lowry said, the best example of that, when the Winnipeg Jets play within the defensive structure that was the foundation for their success this year, they can beat anybody. And you look at their record against the top teams in the league. I know there was a narrative before, the Jets were beating up on all the bad teams. Well, you know what? Good teams beat bad teams more often than not. But they've got a winning record. I think they're 1-1 against Boston, 2-0 against Florida, 1-1 against the Rangers, 2-0 against the Hurricanes. They're 2-0 against the Lightning. The only team that they didn't have a good record against was the Dallas Stars.
Right.
And certainly made a statement in that game that, there's more to them than their 3 losses to Dallas earlier on. But you combine the defensive structure that they seem to be back in with the goaltending, and even if the Jets were off right now, I would look at Connor Hellebuck and Georgiev and say this is a massive, massive advantage for Winnipeg. And then you see the way the goaltenders are going into the playoffs, it is even more so. And that kind of being able to get to him and chase him out of the net, knowing that they're going back at it when it counts next week, psychologically could be a big advantage for Winnipeg.
Oh, it's just like I said, they have the mind games going already. Like Georgiev, they want to talk about the last game of the regular season because you don't want that to linger for a week before you hit the playoffs. But what if he goes out there, low on confidence and has another bad game that just adds to the stack and adds to the, obviously the extra energy you have to put forth by playing a game. I don't think that's going to be a huge difference here, but I think in the series it certainly will. I really like the Jets' chances here. You look at those games, you look at those records you mentioned against the Carolinas, the Bostons. We've seen great efforts in there. We've seen some lucky play in there. We've seen consistent 5-on-5 hockey, and that's been the bread and butter of this team. If this team can get the goaltending, if they can continue to play the 5-on-5 structure that has dipped certainly over the last little stretch here, but has been there this season, and what it looks like when you look at this last road trip, and you can get a little bit more from your special teams, that's a great recipe. And I just don't see what the Colorado Avalanche can look at film this year. Of course, they can look at film from other teams and look at ways that they've stopped the Winnipeg Jets, but the Avalanche can't really do that, and they can't really match lines because they, as you mentioned, Huss, they are a bit top-heavy. They don't have the benefit of a goaltender who's hot right now who can keep them in games, and so the Jets need to come out and they need to set the stage right away. And the Colorado Avalanche, if you can say it, look vulnerable right now. I think when you again, I think that vulnerability is not going to be as great come playoff time, because I think we are going to see both teams reset, reevaluate, get ready for, this clean slate, if you will. But I just don't know what the Colorado Avalanche can look at their own game film and see what they can do to fix it, see what they can do to prevent the Jets, who have a very deep lineup right now, who have found their rhythm, it looks like. What's old is now new again with the forward group, at least, and to see the consistency on defense that we've seen, to have the depth that they have, to be in the health situation that they're in. All those things point towards Winnipeg. All those things point towards feeling good. And what you want to do is obviously feel good into the playoffs. And we'll see what happens here, with the last couple games here, on how the Jets work it out, if they can't, if they have that option in the final game. But I do to rest players, but I do think that this team is fine. And we said this a couple of weeks ago, even with the dipping of records, even with, and this is at a point where I was kind of like, it doesn't really matter what they do in this road trip, but obviously it does in a lot of ways. But what matters most is the health and feeling good. And right now, the Jets are feeling good through their play. And while I'm sure guys are banged up, obviously everyone's dealing with something at this point in the season, is incredibly healthy to the point where this team isn't going to start Cole Perfetti come the playoffs. And I'm not, I don't think that's a grand revelation by any stretch, but it does show, the chemistry that they have and the identity that they have on each line. And that's what I think I like the most about this team. It reminds me a lot of the Vegas Golden Knights, where, yes, you want them all to look the same. And we've seen that over this road trip, but each line has a responsibility. We saw Adam Lowry's line on several occasions over this last road trip get out on a shift, create momentum, create an offensive zone face-off out of it, and then have another team come in, or another line, one of the top lines come in, execute. That's the kind of science, if you will, of a hockey team that you need in the playoffs, that everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone knows what their responsibility is. And I think when you look at the four lines the Jets have on forward have configured here, I think each one of those lines knows exactly what their responsibility is. And that's a really good feeling to have come the playoffs, and add that to the structure and the obviously coaching of Rick Bowness and his staff, and telling them where to be in every situation. When those things are clicking, man, it's a dangerous looking team. And I don't think the Jets have looked much dangerous than they do right now.
Well, and on top of it, you mentioned kind of, peaking at the right time and, playing your best when it counts the most. The other thing that naturally is somewhat cyclical and streaky, I think, amongst most teams, is special teams. And special teams has not been a strength of the Winnipeg Jets over the course of this 80 games. For the power play to look the way it did in the first period, now that everyone's back and healthy, another big positive for the Winnipeg Jets as they get ready for next week.
Oh, like Gabe Vilardi is like the power play savior. He's the guy that just seems to get it. I mean, and just has that knack around the net, and I think that's so, a guy who used to have that like a ton. And I would argue that Vilardi has a more complete game, is James Neal, where if you could get him in front of the net with the puck, you only need a few inches to find a way to score. And to have that kind of weapon on your power play, it's so lethal and so important to the Jets' success. We saw it when Vilardi was out. We've seen the success since he's been back in, and to have him be in that position by the net, it just creates so many options for the Winnipeg Jets on the power play, whether it's him individually, doing something to score, as we saw him go through his legs, which is an incredible goal. Just such a smooth transition in that play, which is what you need to get the goalie moving. But to have him just be somebody that they're going to be pre-scouting heavily, that's a thing that the Jets will have in their toolkit to exploit other teams. If they start focusing on him, there's going to be one or two more options. And just to see some of the finish there, that's going to be so critical. We talked about how important the 5-on-5 game is, and in the playoffs, everyone tends to tighten up a little bit. Everyone it's that much more important. Everyone, almost has the nerves a little bit to play on the more defensive side of the game. The power play, special teams is where you can really break out, is where you can really steal victories. And to have him back in the group, and to have him and have Vilardi playing the way that he's been playing, it's just another opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets to find a way to beat this team in the first round and continue on through the playoffs.
And you know what? I mean, we here on this program and a lot of shows and, on social media, going back and forth about the lines, the top lines, Ehlers, Connor, Ehlers, all of that. I got to tell you, I mean, this last run and really all season long, we don't talk enough about it, but the Jets' bottom six, big advantage in this matchup, and both of those lines, like the fourth line as well, been playing some great hockey right now, and we all know how important that is come playoff time to be able to get contributions from guys from the top to the bottom of the lineup. And I mean, Colorado's a hell of a team, but they're led by a guy that is 50-60% of their offense right now. You can only play those guys so much. And I got to tell you, I mean, even with the score the way it was, Bones was able to kind of even out the ice time, make sure that fourth line got out there for 10, 11 minutes. That's exactly what you want come playoff time, because I mean, how tough the games are, the wear and tear on every player. If you're relying on one line or two lines, that can be problematic. That's not the case for Bones' team. And I think he probably feels as confident as he has at any point this season on putting out certainly Adam Lowry's line, but also the line with Vlad and Barron and Alex Iafallo.
It's not just what you want, man. It's what you need.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, it's one thing for an 82-game regular season. It's a whole other thing when you ramp up the emotion of playoffs. Just every game takes up that much more from you, and it's a compounding thing. So you need your fourth line to be a difference maker in a lot of ways. You don't need them to be filling the net, but you need them to be shifting momentum in your direction every time they get on the ice. They're there to correct momentum swings. They're there to create, obviously takes pressure off the other three forward lines. They're there to throw the body, be physical, to set a tempo, and hopefully chip in every once in a while with a goal here, a critical. And we've seen that from the fourth line for a majority of this season, and we've seen that particularly over the last month here. And I think they've really found a group in Nemestikov and Iafallo. Two guys that have been regular, Morgan Barron, have been regular contributors to that line. I mean, they all have that ability to be offensive, but more importantly, they have that ability to be suffocating. They're strong on the puck. They protect the puck well. They can, they like to dump it in and chase after it and go get it. They view it as, this is a big challenge for them, and they enjoy it. And I think this is, you looked at some of those players on that line, they've all had experience, maybe minus Morgan Barron, who probably warranted at some times. I still like Morgan Barron a lot on the fourth line. I think he clearly has room to grow and get better and rise up the lineup, but I really like him in that fourth line. But we've seen Nemestikov, we've seen Iafallo be relied upon to be in top six and in some cases top line minutes. So, that's a pretty good line that knows how to play the way that the Jets expect that line to play. And that's the reason why, a guy like Cole Perfetti will not, probably won't come into that line unless something really bad happens for the Jets in the first round, or they're hurting so badly for offense that they, need to bring in him to maybe move him, Cole Perfetti, to move him up to the top six, assuming that there's no injury in that top six for him to replace. So, but really that line is, it's doesn't seem, all that wild or all that influential when you look at 10, 11 minutes per game compared to, what we're seeing from the other three lines. But those minutes are absolutely crucial in a series and what's seemingly going to be a long series. And not to think too far ahead, but that's what you need them to do every series en route to achieving what your ultimate goal is. So, I think they found the right mix, and you add in guys like David Gustafsson, who's come in and done everything he's been asked to do when given the opportunity, just to have him there waiting in the wings, who can again provide some of that offensive punch, but more importantly bring that defensive consistency to that line and do exactly, essentially not miss a beat, if you will. That's a big piece of the puzzle here for Winnipeg, and they're going to be critical in Winnipeg's success, even if the other three lines are going to have a bigger role.
Hey, by the way, we're pushing 750 live right now on YouTube. Welcome to everybody new. It's maybe getting the playoff fever and coming on and joining us live today on the program. Make sure to subscribe to Winnipeg Sports Talk wherever you get your favorite podcasts. It's always up, fresh, ready to go in time for the drive home around 3:30. And make sure you have subscribed to the channel as well. And if you see in chat, a heads up to everyone, we do have AEW tickets that we're going to be giving away. You have to be subscribed to be eligible to win. So hit that sub button, get in on those giveaways and contests, and make sure to join us daily if you can, live at 1 o'clock right here on WST. And hit the thumbs up while you're at it. Everyone's fired up in the chat. Let's get those thumbs up going. Likes for today's show, like you liked the performance of the Jets on the weekend. Let's talk. There's another story surrounding the Winnipeg Jets, and your colleague and our pal Mike McIntyre was down at the Frozen Four on the weekend. Rutger McGroarty is obviously they lost in the Frozen Four semifinals. I just see this tweet from Mike in the last 35 minutes. We talked a lot of whether they kind of come together and try and keep the band together. That hasn't happened. Both of his line mates have signed with their NHL clubs. Gavin Brindley just made it official with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Frank Nazar did with the Blackhawks, scored on his first shot in the NHL on the weekend. And Mike says he believes a decision from McGroarty on whether to sign with the Jets or return to college is imminent. We talked about what Friedman said earlier on. He thinks the decision probably comes down to whether they think he'll be in the NHL next year. What do you make of the situation with McGroarty right now before we find out one way or the other what his plans are?
Yeah, I mean, the decision has to be imminent if it hasn't already been made to a certain degree. I mean, you need to decide if you want to play in the NHL. I mean, this is your chance. Like you mentioned, his line mates have already put pen to paper and one has scored a goal. So, with what's remaining in the regular season, with what's ahead here potentially, certainly, to have him kind of ride shotgun with you guys and with the Winnipeg Jets and be part of that, whatever that playoff run looks like would be important for Rutger McGroarty's, development and essentially career if he signs that entry-level deal. And if you're the Winnipeg Jets, those two signings from his line mates might prove to be so significant because if you're the Jets, you're playing kind of nice, boyfriend for lack of a better term here and letting him decide and be fine, decide what you want. We're not going to pressure you if you want this relationship or not, whatever. Let him come to that decision, but having him return to Michigan under these circumstances now, I think makes it makes it even tougher to swallow what the future might have in store. So, I think the Jets are obviously hoping that Rutger McGroarty follows in the footsteps of his line mates and puts pen to paper here, and they can start kind of envisioning what the future could look like with him. But also it's a big decision for Rutger McGroarty because the reality is you want assurances that you're going to be a significant part of this team, which I'm sure he'll get. I have a hard time thinking the Winnipeg Jets haven't already told him they expect him to be a sizable piece of this organization, not just next season potentially, but obviously well into the future here. I mean, we're talking potential captain material if all goes well. That being said, going back to school for another year. Now, it would take another year's commitment for him to become a UFA essentially. But that is a situation where if you go back to school next year, you're kind of balancing, that whole balance of the benefit of joining the NHL versus staying in college starts to kind of equal itself out. And what I mean by that, of course, is his opportunity to hit the open market after, not just next season, but another season after that and get paid more than you're allowed to get paid on an entry-level contract. We saw it with Jimmy VC before. The signing bonus was astronomical. He was making $3-point-something million a season for 2 years with the Rangers, and he's been chasing that deal ever since. And so, that's just what opens to it. When you take into consideration as well of the Winnipeg Jets and how they've kind of worked with or dealt with their draft picks. I mean, some guys, Andrew Kopp obviously wasn't a first round pick, but he's a Michigan guy. He felt like he left money on the table with his time with the Jets. You have guys like Kyle Connor. You don't think Kyle Connor thinks he's worth more than $7 million a year now? The Jets do savvy business to succeed and compete in this league. And part of that savvy business is kind of waiting and not really giving top dollar to, RFAs. And then when they do give you your value, they eat up some of your UFA years. So that's not saying that's the big scary thing to come to Winnipeg, but those are obviously things that Rutger McGroarty will be thinking about, his camp will be thinking about. But that makes this stage right now, the opportunity to sign that entry-level contract, to get that year out of the way. That's a big piece of the puzzle here. And, it's as Mike has reported, I'm sure we are waiting. I'm sure the answer needs to come soon for Jets fans and for the Winnipeg organization. Let's hope that it's Rutger McGroarty staying with the Jets.
Yeah, I don't really think about the UFA being a big deal at all, because if he signs this year, because it doesn't change. If he signs this year, whether he plays in a game and signs this year or does it after next year, it's 27. I mean, that's the time. It's not like he's coming right out. Like, he's already spent a year in college. So that won't change. What will change if he signs and plays in one of these 2 games this week, and I have no idea whether that's on the table at all. But, for instance, Andrew Kopp came because they clinched in the game before. Game 82 was a nothing game. He got in, and it counted. Basically, it took a year off his ELC, and he went to his next contract a year sooner. Mm-hmm. So that could be a possibility. But the bottom line is, if you stay right now and go one more year of Michigan, that's one less year you're playing in the National Hockey League and making NHL money. I mean, to me, that's really what it comes down to. And the other side of course, Jeff, is guys like him have had their eyes on the National Hockey League for their entire lives. That is what they've been working towards and building up to. And you need to really, really love where you're at and think that it's beneficial for you development-wise to stay in an extra year if you, to make that decision. And I think the fact that we've seen his other teammates already sign deals, I would say that is that bodes well for the Jets' chances of getting his name on the thing. Now, Elliot says, let's see here what Elliot says. He's going to stay for another year, Reem?
I showed it to the chat. I'm just pulling it up right now. Here's a tweet from Elliot putting it on the screen. That is not it. He says, hearing Rutger McGroarty, the Jets 2022 first rounder, will return for his junior year at Michigan. Jets and his advisors discussed today, and the team supported his decision.
So based on what Elliot said earlier on today, I think that means that they think that he probably wouldn't be in the NHL next year. As I say, development-wise, the team's probably supporting it. I mean, it's like we had Shane Malloy on last week, and it's never a bad idea for a guy to get extra time. Now, there's a lot of people around here that are pretty excited to see what he can do as a pro and get him into the mix earlier. But I would say the most likely situation now is he goes back for another year, and probably at this time, depending on what happens. I'm not sure. Thing with Michigan is, Jeff, even when you lose players like this, it is it is a place that so many guys want to go to. They probably are going to be good year after year. Whether they're good enough to be a Frozen Four team again next year, I guess remains to be seen. But at the end of the day, I know from the organization standpoint, I don't think that they'll be heartbroken on this, because I think that if they knew he was going to be in the NHL, they would have been able to say, you're an NHLer next year. Let's make it happen right now.
So you're going with what? Because they supported his decision?
Well,
why you determined that he wouldn't be in the NHL next season?
I think that if they were able to tell him that you're going to be in the NHL next year, I think he signs.
Okay,
I think they probably think that, maybe it'd be some time with the Moose. Like the way that it was put forth today on 32 Thoughts, and I kind of get this. Like, if there's an NHL job for me, I'm in. if there's not, I'd rather play another year at Michigan than play in the American Hockey League. I think that's what it comes down to.
But I would go as far as to say Rutger McGroarty, based on some of the comments he's made, the emotion he's felt, the time he's had, he seems like one of those guys that isn't in a rush to get to the National Hockey League. He sounds like a guy who's
apparently not
willing and wanting to take the full college experience, and knowing that, because here's the reality, Huss, like, he's going to be a dominant college hockey player. Like, his stock is not.
He already is.
Exactly. He's not good. His stock's not going to go down. I guess there is the risk of injury, but I would argue that even if he did suffer a significant injury, it's not going to stop him from playing in the National Hockey League or being on a team's radar. And that's why, he's a guy that wants to be that guy who delivers national championships. He, like I said, he's kind of just loves life, and it looks like he loves the opportunity. I've been lucky enough to go to Ann Arbor before. I've been to a couple Wolverines football games. That city's incredible. That town is incredible. So, maybe that's part of it. But if that's the decision, and it sounds like it is, things get dicey by the end of next year. I just, it's one of those things that, yeah, maybe it's not a promise to the AHL. If I was the Winnipeg Jets, I'd be saying, I wouldn't be saying you're starting out in the Moose next season, or, something like you'll have to work your way into the AHL. Even if I felt like that was maybe a plan there, I'd be saying you're going to have every opportunity to crack this lineup. It's going to be up to you. We want you to be in our starting lineup next year. This is a big man. This isn't a guy who needs to figure out his body size before he gets into the league. I think he's NHL ready now. And whether or not that jives with Winnipeg is a whole other thing. And the other part too is if you look at, maybe just, you're right. I don't know why you would want to play in the AHL versus playing, for a national championship and going to another year of college and getting another year of education and that whole campus kind of lifestyle. But that does become problematic, over time. And while, the Jets are, the team has supported his decision, what is the alternative? To not support that decision? Of course you support that decision, but I can't think for a second here that the Jets aren't disappointed that he's not, following in those same footsteps as his line mates and putting, pen to paper here. I'm not saying that Rutger McGroarty is going to go somewhere else or he's not going to be a Winnipeg Jet, but that question still remains, and that question is going to be asked to him, until he essentially gives an answer. And the more you hear no answer, I don't know, if you're a Jets fan, that doesn't feel great. You kind of want the guy to be talking about how awesome Winnipeg was, as much like he was doing for the first year since he was drafted. And I'm not saying he's cooled on Winnipeg by any stretch, but sometimes actions speak louder than words. And it's kind of going to be one of those things where it's to be continued here, with the hope that, he gets his full fill of 3 years of school and then comes and starts his professional career here in Winnipeg.
Well, I'll say this. I think a year from right now, if the Jets are in a similar situation, he's far more likely to, if he's signing, to actually play and potentially even be in the playoffs. I mean, I think that's one thing that probably wasn't there, at least for him right now, the way the team is set up. And I guess
have a hard time thinking he's demanding playing time for this year. You know what I mean? Like, that to me would be ridiculous, essentially. Like, like a team that's was fighting for first place in the National Hockey League to demand some kind of role come the playoffs. I imagine
he'll probably be the captain next year as well. I don't believe he was the captain this year. I could be wrong on that, but anyways, and here's the other thing. This is not necessarily 100% etched in stone. I'm not going to say that he's going to change his mind, but we all remember Mason Appleton say that he was going to Michigan State and he was going back for another year, and then he came to development camp and then signed a contract and ended up starting his pro career. But at least for right now, because I think the big question was this week: is he signing? Does he get into a game? Does that click? Does that make the ELC get going 1 year earlier? That won't be the case, and so it sounds like Rutger McGroarty going to Michigan, and that'll be. We'll have a lot of similar conversations about Rutger for the next 12 months. It looks like we've had as of late. Hammer, great stuff as always. I can't wait to talk to you next week, because I have a feeling we're going to be getting ready for the Whites at Canada Life Center in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I'd love to hear the curve of this conversation here. I think a lot of people were, happy about the positivity of where the Jets were and the glowing endorsement I gave them. And I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news. I'm just giving you the reality of potentially. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen with Rutger McGroarty, but I do think that it just becomes a bit of in the back of your mind. And if you think for a second it's not in the back of the Jets' minds, well, that's up to you to think that. But I know they are high on him. They want him. Hopefully he comes here. He'd be great in a Winnipeg Jets jersey. Let's just assume he will be here.
You read Mike's piece on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from all accounts, great relationship. Can't wait to be here. I mean, this hasn't been icy at all. Frankly, the exact opposite. And listen, if we're having a conversation like this next year at this time, that's a little bit of a different story. But I mean, it is a big sacrifice professionally to go back for a third year and, to opt out of, professional level money and that ELC in the first year, and to do it a second year would be significant. As I say, we'll have that conversation in a long time if that comes to it. In the meantime, though,
the playoffs.
It's on to the playoffs. We live in the here and now right now, and would have loved to be talking a different story about Rutger. Obviously, you can tell that in my voice, but we'll see what happens. And first things first, it's the Avalanche next Monday, in all likelihood. First up, the Kraken tomorrow, and the Jets trying to officially confirm that they will be the home team in games 1 and 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hammer, great stuff as always. You have a good one, and we'll talk to you next week, and it'll be playoff time on WST.
Always a pleasure, my friend, and hopefully we're talking good news next week too. Take care.
You got it. All right, there's Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Hey, I have to give a huge thanks to the great people at Princess Auto, proudly founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, and while they're growing and continue to grow coast to coast, Winnipeg will always be home for Princess Auto, and Princess Auto Stadium is now the official home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Of course, the Princess Auto tailgate zone before the games, and the biggest and proudest supporter of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, also great supporters of the sports community here in Winnipeg and Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them in store, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Shout out to our friends at Royal Sports. Gang, the countdown is on to the whiteout. And if you need to get ready for the whiteout, there's only one place you need to go, Royal Sports. All last week, the white was coming in. They've got playoff T-shirts, jerseys, and more. Everything in white. White overalls, brand new fan chains, everything you need to get ready for the street parties or getting your butt into CLC to cheer on the Winnipeg Jets against the Colorado Avalanche. And listen, there's more than just playoffs going on right now at Royal, because spring is here. Soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, it's all coming in by the day. Get ready for the change of seasons and the Stanley Cup playoffs at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Check them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And we got a couple more games to get to, and then it is playoff time. And listen, the next best place to be if you're not in the arena is your local Boston Pizza, watching on the Jets. Big screen, big sound, beautiful, delicious, world-famous BP wings, big schooners, and of course, gourmet pizzas and more. Pick a player contests at most local Boston Pizzas for every Jet game as well. Pop by this week to your local BP. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And a huge shout out to our friends at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. We're probably just days away from the course opening, and it is going to be another great season. Craig, their incredible superintendent and grounds crew, always does just an amazing job getting the course ready. One of Manitoba's premier private clubs. You can talk to Corey Johnson about getting on the waiting list for your member at Breezy Bend. And of course, also get in touch at breezybend.ca for tournaments as well as wedding hosting possibilities and more. It's all at breezybend.ca, who brings all of our golf coverage and golf reports throughout the year. And speaking of golf, what a Masters we had. Scotty Scheffler running away with it. Let's break down the green jacket, going back to Scotty Scheffler with Adam Scully of TSN and Golf Talk Canada. Adam, he did it again. This guy is an absolute buzzsaw. I guess maybe we shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, at this time last week, we were all talking about whether Scotty Scheffler was the biggest favorite since Tiger Woods in his prime. And you thought, well, this guy, he's almost robotic. Like, he can't get it done again and again, right? Like we saw at the Players' Championship. He made history becoming the first player to ever defend his title successfully. No one had ever done that in the 50 years previously of the Players' Championship. He shows up to the Masters, win-win T2 in his previous 3 starts. That T2, of course, that 5-foot miss on the 72nd hole at the Texas Children's Houston Open. And for Scotty Scheffler, this was a remarkable performance. It's clear he didn't really have his A game Thursday through Saturday, but on Sunday, he really shined when it mattered most. 6 birdies in his final 10 holes. The birdie on 9, almost making eagle. The birdie on 10. And then he looked further down the line when he birdied 14, that unbelievable approach shot into that hole. Then the 16th hole, where we heard Vern Lundquist's final birdie call of his illustrious 40-year career at the Masters. Scotty Scheffler, a 4-shot win. He is unstoppable right now, you can say that.
You know, selfishly, for those of us that had tickets of everybody but Scotty Scheffler, we were hoping maybe his wife would go into labor, because it seemed like that was the only thing that was going to prevent him from getting another green jacket in the Butler cabin.
You would have. I'm just so curious. I mean, I know social media was ablaze when the lead was 3 or 4, and people, posting screenshots saying Meredith on the line. So, I mean, I would have been so curious for it to happen at some point during the round. But, for Scotty Scheffler, you can even tell. Like, I feel like everything that's about to happen, having your first child, it really took his mind away from winning the Masters. He said that afterwards in his press conference, talking about A, his faith, and B, how he was stoic, he was robotic throughout the entire final round, where everyone else, the pressure really got to them. Boy, oh boy, it certainly didn't get to Scotty Scheffler.
He is on, listen, I'll say historic, just because we're speaking of him in terms of prime Tiger Woods. And we mentioned the betting line, shortest numbers in 20 years since Tiger was completely dominating and revolutionizing the game. But for a guy that, listen, his iron play is maybe as good or better, because some of the other parts of his game, certainly the flat stick, has been a bit of an Achilles heel in the past. But it's quite clear right now, Adam, that when Scotty Scheffler has his A game, there's no one really that can touch him.
It's Scotty Scheffler and then everyone else. The gap between number 1 and number 2 is huge. And the big thing is that putter, where you think to last year when he contended a lot and didn't win that much because he was putting pretty much with a blindfold last year. And what did he do this year? He finally made a putter switch. Now, whether you're Scotty Scheffler or your weekend warrior who shoots 92 every Saturday morning, sometimes a switch with the flat stick is a good thing. So Scheffler switches to a completely different style of putter, and we've seen the strokes gained putting numbers get better. They're still not great, but they're better. He was 22nd in the field in strokes gained putting at the Masters, gaining 0.45 shots for the week putting alone, where last year that number was -2, -3. So maybe he could have won the Masters with a different putter, but now that the putter is, seems to be relatively shored up to a degree, you got to look at the next 3 majors. And I know it's recency bias, but you can think back to 2015 when Jordan Spieth won the Masters. Jordan Spieth goes into the U.S. Open at Chambers Bay, wins that too. I know DJ 3-putted from about 8 feet at Chambers Bay. And Jordan Spieth nearly won the Open Championship that year. So could we be in Grand Slam talk? for Scotty Scheffler this year? Maybe.
I mean, at this point, it seems like anything's possible. Speaking of anything's possible, the future could not be brighter for Ludwig Åberg. First time in a major, never mind first time at the Masters, he ends up finishing second. And if it weren't for that uber aggressive shot on 11 that went into the drink, it probably cost us a lot of drama because everything else he did was phenomenal. And I mean, I will say this, I'm pretty sure we'll see him in the Butler cabin at some point before the end of his career.
I mean, the way he performed down the stretch, aside from the 11th hole, you would think so. And talk about having a cool, calm, and collected, mature head on your shoulders. I mean, have you ever seen someone make a double bogey on the 11th hole, whether it's the Masters or any major championship on a Sunday, and walk off the green smiling? I sure haven't. I mean, this guy's got such a great attitude. Even earlier this year at Torrey Pines, he was having some issues putting, missing some short putts. And instead of slamming his club, instead of breaking a putter in half, he laughed. He laughed it off. And we got to spend some time with Ludwig Åberg in Hawaii earlier this year. And you can just tell this guy is so mature beyond his years. And how about that move? His golf swing is so simple. He hits it an absolute mile. It's a simple turn back, turn through, hits it high, hits it long. For a guy who wasn't even playing professional golf at this point last year to now have a DP World Tour win, a PGA Tour win, a Ryder Cup win, a runner-up at the Masters, his first ever major championship. The future is oh so bright.
Yeah, buying all the stock in Ludwig Åberg. What were your takeaways for Max Homa and Colin Morikawa for the week overall?
Yeah, so Colin Morikawa has had a bit of a strange start to the year, just the T5 at the Century Championship at the start of the year, and then a lot of MIA since then, really fighting that fade that he has relied upon so much off the tee, and he's been struggling with that, but made a driver switch, made a 3-wood switch, made a putter switch mid-tournament. In fact, on the same day, Friday morning, for him to finish his first round with a mallet style of putter. He had 45 minutes between tee times. He thought, you know what? I'm going to switch the flat stick. You know the stones it takes to do that at a major championship. And, Morikawa, he got greedy. He even said that after, that greed really costed him. He saw Scheffler knock it in really close on the 9th hole, almost jarring it for eagle, spinning it back for eagle. So Morikawa was in the greenside bunker, got a little greedy, left in the bunker, makes double. He also put it into the water on the 11th hole. But for Morikawa, it's good to see a good finish from the two-time major champion. Now that the ball striking is back, he is going to be someone on our radar heading into the next couple of majors for sure. As for Max Homa, we've been waiting for a performance like this at a major for quite some time now. A T10 was his best finish at a major prior to this weekend. What I really saw from Max, he went 34 straight holes without a birdie at one point. It just looks like his game is so well suited for a U.S. Open. And at times, the Masters, well, it kind of felt like a U.S. Open because it was so breezy. The pin locations were in very, very challenging spots. And Homa, he got a really bad break on the 12th hole, sort of misjudged the wind and flew the green, where a lot of balls have rolled back down the slope to have a relatively easy up and down. His stayed in a bush, had to take a double bogey after an unplayable lie. I'm liking Max Homa here going forward. He's going to learn from this experience, I think, in a big way. Probably not doing much practicing today. I'm not sure if you saw his comments afterwards yesterday on Sunday when he said, well, I haven't had any alcohol in quite some time, and I'm really going to enjoy myself tonight. So I wouldn't be checking his whoop score too closely today. Let's put it that way.
Hey, you know what? If he wanted to go and floor it last night, he deserved it. He had a great week. And I mean, listen, he's such a popular guy. Very, very easy dude to cheer for. Probably you wouldn't say the same thing for a good portion of the LIV contingent. When you look at LIV overall and some of the disappointing performances, certainly Bryson was there. A newcomer, Tyrrell Hatton, had a great final round. But what do you make of where LIV is at right now and the players' overall ability to step it up from their usual unique 54-hole events to the grind and pressure of a 72-hole major.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of people on social media talking about, oh, they only play 54 holes, so they're out of shape by the final round. They're golfers. You guys play all the time. Even Wyndham Clark, who made the comments after the first round saying, oh, they play 54 holes. Well, Wyndham Clark missed karma. You know, there to Wyndham Clark. But for some of these other live players, you know, Brooks Koepka, John Rahm, surprising is an understatement for me, for those guys not playing very well, both finishing at 9 over par, both tied with Jose Maria Olazabal. If there was a betting number on that, it would have been astronomical for two major champions last year to be tied with Jose Maria Olazabal. But you look at Bryson DeChambeau, and he contended last year at the PGA Championship. It looks like, I mean, I don't know about you, but he looks more like a regular human being now. He went from, you know, a younger, skinny guy to putting on 50 to 60 pounds and, you know, having 7 protein shakes in a day and a bunch of steaks and just getting, quite frankly, very unhealthy. Now he's slimmed down. Now it just looks like he just works out every day and hits an absolute mile. Put those new irons in the bag. He's a guy where he's so intriguing to me to watch because he hits it a mile. He's got these new irons in the bag, had some issues with distance control with those shorter irons and pitching, particular the 15th hole on Thursday when he chunked that wedge shot. For Bryson, though, I mean, that's something he struggled with. When you have one length irons throughout the bag, it's just harder to chip. It's harder to hit wedge shots with distance control because they're longer. So he's someone who, after this week, I was pretty impressed by, I have to tell you. Cameron Smith, who what everyone said was that Cameron Smith, he just doesn't really care anymore. Well, you can tell Cameron Smith still has a lot of game, and I know he's played well at the Masters before, but this is another good week for him. And someone we didn't really see on the broadcast all that much, but still finished T12, Patrick Reed. Now, Patrick Reed, sure, he's very likely the most hated person in golf. He plays his practice rounds alone, etc., etc. But this guy's a gamer still. This guy knows how to score in a big way. But Bryson and Cam Smith, the big winners from Live Golf over the weekend.
You mentioned Reed, and you're exactly right. I mean, we literally saw almost nothing of him, and he's a former champion at the event. How would you describe the relationship from Augusta National and the Masters people with Live? Because it seems to be pretty frosty. Just ask Greg Norman, who had to buy a ticket on the secondary market.
Well, I wonder how Greg Norman's hands are feeling after allegedly shaking thousands of people's hands, telling them how much they love Live Golf. Gotta love that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seemed, I would say with Patrick Reed in particular, if I had an ice cube and put it on my hand, that's sort of how I would describe it, as icy. But, I mean, it maybe seemed a little standoffish, a little awkward in Butler Cabin last night when John Rahm, who has gone over to Live, had the green jacket. I mean, that ceremony is always some of the most awkward television we ever see throughout the year, sports or not, regardless. But I would say Augusta's relationship is still respectful, I would say, with Live Golf. We know Joaquin Niemann got the special exemption to play. He played with Rory McIlroy in the final round. Boy, oh boy, would I have loved to be a fly on a golf bag to hear any of their conversation going back and forth, because Niemann's been one of the more outspoken guys in the last little bit, having success on Live too. But yeah, I would say the relationship between Live and the Masters is maybe a little standoffish.
Well, and I sort of wanted to bring that to Butler Cabin and John Rahm in particular. I mean, Rahm's press conferences at the beginning of the week show, like, I'm not sure whether he just thought that by him going, it was going to change everything and everything would be back together. But, like, I'm not sure whether he's got buyer's remorse. I mean, certainly his bank account looks great, but it seems like he's having a difficult time with the consequences of his decision.
I totally agree. And he seems like he really thought that, or at least it seemed that way anyway, that him going to Live would just accelerate things and bring everyone together. And by this point, we would essentially be on one tour, and the best players in the world would be playing together far more often. Well, It hasn't quite worked out that way, John. And you can tell maybe a little jealous, even talking about how he had to miss the WM Phoenix Open, the Genesis Invitational. He loves playing in Maui at the start of the year, TPC Sawgrass, etc. That was one of the more awkward press conferences, pre-tournament press conferences that Jon Rahm was in, and he shot 9 over at Augusta National in his title defense. I know it's really hard to win back-to-back at the Masters. Hasn't been done very often, to say the least, but I'm now curious to see how Jon Rahm plays going forward. He's still a world-class talent. He still won 4 times last year on the PGA Tour, including the Masters, but definitely not his best week.
Yeah, I mean, where do we go from here? I mean, you guys cover this all the time, and I mean, we should be focusing on the tournaments and the players that are there. But I mean, in today's world of golf, even with the Masters, there's sort of a cloud around the entire sport. That the fact that we don't get to see these guys go head to head very often, and on top of it all, when they do get to a place like Augusta, that story is hanging in the balance. I mean, do you have any indication that things are going to move forward? Because it's quite clear no one's paying attention to LIV, but this is also really damaging the PGA Tour on a week-to-week basis.
It totally is. To answer your question, not really. In terms of indication, we know that Yasser Al-Rumayad met with Tiger and a couple other members from the PGA board, including Peter Malnati, who went on to win the next week, won the Valspar Championship. So from that regard, from everything Commissioner Jay Monahan said back at the Players' Championship, I think we're getting closer. I hope we're getting closer. That's all that golf fans want to see. And I'm sure you're in the same boat here in terms of, being in group chats with friends who have watched the PGA Tour for years, who have watched golf for years. And quite frankly, they're sick of this. They're sick of the greed. They just want to see everyone come together. And even Bryson had some puzzling comments at the start of the week talking about, let's get this together sooner rather than later. That'll bring the game together. Well, hey, Bryson, you're a big reason the game is far apart now. So maybe you should have thought differently when that happened a couple of years ago with LIV. Guys like Phil Mickelson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're the reason that the game is split apart. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Am I right?
No, and I thought the Rahm signing was the most significant just because of his space in world golf and everything that he had said in the past. And it's really damaged his personal brand. It hasn't turned things around. And I think it's, tough. It's making it tougher in these situations for him to be the Jon Rahm that we remember in the past, winning majors and winning green jackets. Adam, great chat as always. Listen, it was an awesome tournament. We've got 3 more majors. Fill us in on what you and the fellas are going to be up to on Golf Talk Canada in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. So full Masters recap o'clock, we'll put it that way. We just got off the air on the TSN radio network. Mark Sakino and I, Bob Weeks, currently on his way back from Augusta National. Should also note Bob had 12 egg salad sandwiches throughout the week, which is having tasted one myself, or 2 actually, at Augusta National last week. They're pretty good, but 12 of them in 1 week is something. I should say Bob also had 13 last year, so he's down a notch, which is weird. Anyway, Masters recap specials for us Tuesday night on TSN, and Wednesday we'll begin to look ahead to the rest in the world of golf, what's going on. First LPGA major of the year at the Chevron Championship, where Nelly Korda, she's looking for her 5th straight win, and we know Brooke Henderson, she's had a good year so far, also looking back to get in the major winner circle.
Adam, thanks for doing this, pal. Always great to catch up, and got to wait a few weeks for another major, but they seem bigger now with the golf world split the way that it is. Have a great one, and thanks again for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, great stuff with Adam Scully. Appreciate him jumping on the program. All right, let's get Remo back in here. We'll get to the Coolbet lines in a minute. Just more kind of reaction and commentary, I guess we should say, from some of the Jets beat guys about the Rutger McGroarty decision. Reem, maybe if you want to pull up Mike's tweet first, and then we can get Murat's as well.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just pull it up right now. And that was the number one question coming into the show. So what's the Rutger news? Because you saw Frank Nazar sign over the weekend, other college players is coming in. Cutter Gauthier signed, but we were like, what's Rutger? And Elliot talked about Rutger on Hockey Night in Canada and on their podcast. And then what Mike tweeted during the show, the decision is imminent, and it came through. He's headed back to Michigan.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sort of with Hamilton. I mean, if there's a spot for him, I would have made a point of trying to get him signed and in the fold. But here's what Mike's saying. As Elliot reported, Rutger's heading back to Michigan for another season. I'm told it was a difficult decision to put off signing with the Jets, when the player and family really wrestled with, but ultimately everyone felt this was the best path for him. I think there was a second one to that too, Reem. I expect Rutger will be the captain of Michigan next season, and while several key teammates have left to sign with NHL clubs, expectation is they'll have another strong team that he will be a focal point of. Jets' current forward depth certainly played a role in the decision. And then Mike follows it up with this. For those worrying that Rutger McGroarty doesn't want to sign with the Jets and will wait it out to test free agency down the road, that should not be a concern at all. He loves the organization and vice versa, outlined in the feature last week. And again, read that one, free press from Saturday, if you haven't already. Pull up Marat's as well while we're on the topic, Reem. There it is. Rutger McGroarty returning to the University of Michigan next season. My understanding is the path to NHL playing time was a key item to talks with the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg is deep, with more opportunity likely to be available in 2025-26, and Winnipeg supports this decision. So there you got it. No Rutger McGroarty, at least for another year, expected. As they say, things do change. It changed with Mason Appleton. He announced he was going back to Michigan State and then in the summer signed. But from the sounds of it, I mean, I'm not sure the Winnipeg Jets forward depth is going to change significantly over the course of the offseason, although there's always the potential for moves to be made. But as of right now, Rutger staying at Michigan. That is the big news of the day. Hey, just before we get to the Coolbet lines, got to give it up to our Canadian women, Reem. I got to tell you, those Canada-U.S. games are always so damn good. It's just automatic that it almost goes to overtime. But yesterday's game, a 6-5 OT win by the Canadians, just another classic in one of the truly great rivalries in all of sports.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone was glued to that one yesterday afternoon, and 6-5. So well done, Canadian women us. And yeah, always it seems like it always goes to overtime. Someone's gonna be the hero. What, Mary Finley Plant? Let someone else do it this time. What, missing on the breakaway? On the breakaway there, that was the joke. But yeah, it's a classic. Sorry, got something in my throat here.
MPP was big in the game yesterday, as she always is. But congratulations to St. Anne, Manitoba's Jocelyn Larocque. We have to get Jocelyn on before she gets back to it in the PWHL. But always great to talk about another gold medal for Canada at the Women's World Championships. All right, let's get to the Coolbet lines. Big night tonight in the National Hockey League. Some very significant games in the Eastern Conference playoff race. Detroit, right now tied with Washington. Washington has the tiebreaker and is in the wild card spot as of now. Detroit's got a home and home with the Habs to finish up the season. They're at home tonight. They're minus 212 favorites. The Islanders can clinch their spot with a win in Jersey. This was actually minus 116 earlier. It's now minus 128 for the Islanders. Wow, and this Pittsburgh line's moved quite a bit. Pittsburgh was plus money earlier on. I think like plus 121, if I recall correctly, at the start of the lock shop. It's now minus 111 for Pittsburgh, minus 105 for Nashville. Nashville needs a win and this is the last game of the season for the Preds. They need a win to make sure they're the first wild card ahead of the Vegas Golden Knights and avoid Dallas in the first round. Pittsburgh minus 111. They have to win if they want to make the playoffs. That should be a good one. Buffalo, Tampa, the Lightning minus 171 faves. Boston minus 154 in Washington against the Caps. The Caps plus 131 home dogs. The Rangers can wrap up first in the East with a win over the Sens at MSG, minus 223 for the Rangers. The Oilers, a massive home favorite, minus 552. Sounds like McDavid's back tonight. I know, minus 552. Exactly. Yeah, like the puck line is 2.5, and it's still minus 105. That might be crazy. The biggest, most lopsided line of the entire year. And a big one for the Kings at home against the Wild. They're trying to stay ahead of Vegas and stay in third place in the division. LA minus 168, the Wild plus 142. We do have a partner parlay, which we put together. This one was plus 460 when we made it. The fellas have boosted it over to plus 525. Islanders to win, Pittsburgh to win, Boston to win. All money line, can win in overtime, can win in a shootout. That is over there in the Coolbet exclusives. And as I mentioned earlier, Jet fans, if you're feeling frisky and you're looking to put a little sprinkle on the Jets to win the cup, get over to Coolbet right now, because the Jets right now, you have to go all the way down to the 20-1. Like, here's the odds. Oilers and Canes 7-1, Panthers and Stars 8-1, Avalanche plus 950, 10-1 for the Rangers, 13-1 for the Golden Knights, 14-1 for the Bruins, 16-1 for the Leafs, 17-1 for the Canucks, and the Winnipeg Jets 20-1. Now, just to give you an idea, I just saw Pat and the guys check out some of the other odds that are out there for the Jets. SIA has them at 15-1, Pinnacle 14, 365 and Betway have them at 10-1. So I think this is obvious. If you are looking to put a little wager on the Jets, by far and away the best number out there is at Coolbet right now. I imagine that could change in the coming days as people maybe wake up and realize the heater the Jets are on going into the playoffs. But right now, 20-1 for the Winnipeg Jets. And that's the biggest number we've seen on the Jets probably in 3 months. I mean, they've been in around at 15-1, 14-1. They backed up to 17-1. I'm surprised they're at 20, but we won't be surprised. We'll just be thankful to get the best number around. If you haven't played at Coolbet before, use the promo code WST on your first deposit. You'll get a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit with the promo code WST. Remo, you're a guy that loves Val. Good Val. I would say the value on the Jets, certainly compared to the rest of the market, crazy at Coolbet right now.
Yeah, that's certainly interesting. And I'm even looking at Vancouver. Like, aren't they first in the West and they're at 17-1? That seems strange. So, yeah, if you want to take advantage, 20-1 for the Jets. I saw some other people posting in our chat that they have. So that's a pretty good number, especially when you hear other people putting it 10-1, and yeah, there's second in the Central, second in the Central here. So pretty 50
wins in 80 games, best goaltending in the league. I mean, listen, it is a crapshoot, but I'll put the Jets and their chances up with most of those teams on that list. Some of them, like a team like Colorado, less than half of the odds that we're getting on the Jets right now. So anyway, shout out to Coolbet for sleeping on the Jets and giving us the best number around. Check out, we'll talk about it more coming up in the Lock Shop tomorrow, noon, before WST over on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. That's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow should be a good one, Reem. By the way, big time signing by the Winnipeg Sea Bears, a hometown Winnipeg product, arguably the best pro that Winnipeg's produced since Todd McCullough. And he's going to be joining us tomorrow on the program as well.
Yeah, that was, the Winnipeg Sea Bears hype is building. It kicks off on around May long weekend. But yes, the big signing they announced today, Jared Ogungbemi Jackson back to Winnipeg, and he's been playing overseas, many countries, most recently in Minsk against some big teams there. So looking forward to having him on the program, hearing his story. And man, we've had a number of Sea Bears players. They're going to be good this year. People know that Winnipeg is the place where you want to play ball and have big crowds and a great atmosphere. And I think the players have answered with some big signings. So I'm excited to see how they shape up this year for year 2.
You know it. Jared Ogungbemi Jackson, Garden City legend, back-to-back player of the year and high school champ, went to Calgary, has now played all around the world and is going to be a Sea Bear this year. He'll join us tomorrow on the show as well. And of course, we'll get ready for the Jets and the Seattle Kraken. Just on the way out, Reem, and why don't we just quickly play this from today? Just a quick update on Nino Niederreiter. Nino spoke earlier today, and he was back on the ice today. It looks like he's getting ready to return. Here's Nino on the injury he suffered in his time out.
I mean, obviously it was kind of a scary play. I mean, I felt something in my leg, but I didn't know exactly what it was. So I reached down a couple of times and felt some blood at some point, and then it started getting warm. That's when I knew I got to get off and see what's up, and obviously got extremely lucky. I nicked my Achilles a little bit and had to get a few stitches, and I'm glad I'm standing here right now.
Do you know how many stitches that you had?
Yeah, I think it was 8 stitches, and they told me I got very lucky. I mean, I did wear the cut resistant socks, and obviously they helped big time at that point. Could have been a lot worse if I wouldn't wear them.
Well, that is great to see Nino healthy and ready to go, or close to being ready to go. And yes, good news that he was wearing those cut-resistant socks, as it could have been quite a bit worse. Here's Bones on Nino's status for tomorrow.
If he feels like he did today when we go out there tomorrow, yeah, there's a good chance he will play.
And obviously there's some value in that, right? Because you'd like to get him a game or two to get him up to speed for the big stage next week.
Yeah, we're hoping he can play.
All right, Bones, and a little bit more from Bones. Let's get into number 13, Reem, because Gus really played well during these games that Nino was out. And here's what Bones had to say about David Gustafsson and the way he played in the place of Nino Niederreiter the last couple of games.
It speaks well of the depth of the organization and the fact that we can put the guys in the right roles. I think that's Gus more of a role like that he plays with Adam and Apple, and again it shows the commitment to the team as well, because Gus hadn't played much, but he's been working his butt off every day, as the guys who are not playing are working very hard. The coaches work them very hard, and we're all very confident when we put them in that they're ready to do what we need them to do, and Gus is a perfect example.
All right, a little bit more from Bones. And obviously, the talk of today was what the Jets did on the weekend. Here's Bones on the Jets getting back to their game and those 2 big wins to finish up the road trip.
Well, to me, we've played most of the season like that. That's why we've been in first or second place in the goals against all year. So it's nice that it came in those 2 games against 2 great opponents that, we were able to find a way to win the game and do things right. But we've had a ton of those games all year. We lead the league, and we're tied with Carolina for regulation wins. So, again, we've got 50 wins. So it's not just those 2 games. We've done a lot of good things. Now, we just, I guess the focus on that is that it's against 2 of the elite teams in our division. So the timing of that is really good. But we played a lot of good hockey this year. We're a good hockey team.
All right, no apologies from Rick Bowness, that's for sure. Great bit of audio there from Bones. And here's one more from Bones just to wrap it up. Tomorrow, got the opportunity to clinch home ice in the first-round series against Colorado. Here's Bones on trying to get home ice tomorrow.
It's all our focus is on tomorrow night's game. That's all we're focusing on. Take care of business tomorrow night. That's why I told them this morning, you know what you need to do to get ready for tomorrow. If you need to skate today and tomorrow morning, skate today and tomorrow. If you don't need to skate, don't skate. Whatever you do, put all our focus, all our energy on that game tomorrow night, and then we'll go from there.
All right, there's Bones. We'll hear more from the head coach and the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow, post-morning skate. as we get ready for the Jets on a potential home ice clinching day. Need a point tomorrow, at least against Seattle, to book games 1 and 2 in the Peg next week. Likely series beginning on Monday. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks to the Hammer, Jeff Hamilton, and Adam Scully, who popped by. Great crowd today live on YouTube. Shout out to everyone that joined us. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button on your way out. And a big thanks to all the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. We will see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. for a game day edition for Game 81. And the race for the Jennings continues. We'll see you tomorrow right here on WST. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.